I'm going to tell you a story because I love stories. Do you like stories? Okay, so I love going on these crazy road trips and just hopping in the car and going. And so I have a group of people that I work with in deaf ministry. So they are either deaf or they are very passionate about signing and teaching the gospel to deaf people. So we hopped in this car to go to a conference. And at this point, we had spent 36 hours at the end of this in the car together. So we were just like, we were done being in the car, but we had the best conversations. And it wasn't that I cared about where we were going. It was that I cared about the people I was with in the car. And as a deaf person, normally I hate being in the car because I cannot lip read. And typically the freeway is so loud that I can't figure out what's happening in the conversation. But when you're driving with deaf people, it is crazy, okay? So you have the driver, who all of them were deaf. Then you have the passenger, who relays the entire conversation in the car up to the driver. So the driver is like not looking at the road, but looking at the passenger. And then it gets really scary, and the driver starts signing. It's like, who's holding the wheel? No one. And then the passenger is taking the driver's conversation and putting it to the rest of the car. But then it gets really scary, and other cars that we were in a caravan with pull up next to you and start signing through the windows, and you're driving down the highway. But it was the first time that I realized that so many people never have the chance to know my personality unless it's that they take the time to create this beautiful communication. Because a lot of times your personality is shown because you hear that witty part of a conversation, you can input who you are and have a banter. Well, I never got to. But when we finally got to the place we were going to stay, we ended up in this old, cool, huge house for some reason. It was random. But we're in this old house, and it was kind of scary. It was really dark. It's about 3 in the morning at this point, and one of my other friends was in the room with me. And at this point, we had spent 36 hours or something in the car. So I had shared all my embarrassing stories. So I'll share one. I'm terrified of being locked in the bathroom. Deathly afraid, because when I was in first grade, I got locked in the bathroom for an entire hour, and no one knew. No one came looking for me, and so I have always been afraid. So they know this about me. They've heard all of my stories. It's an inside joke with everyone who knows me, because without fail, no matter where we are, I would have disappeared because I am locked in the bathroom, and people have to come find me. So it's just me and my two friends at 3 in the morning, and she was going to take a shower. And I was like, hold up. Let me go to the bathroom real quick and then take a shower. And so at this point, I have no hearing aids in because I'm with a bunch of deaf people. I don't need to hear. So I was signing, no hearing aids. And I am stone cold deaf without hearing aids. I hear nothing. So I go to the bathroom, and I'm ready to open the door. And I didn't even lock it, but it is locked. And I'm like, oh, no. And I think I'm alone at this point. And so I'm like, oh, no, I can't hear. I can't hear to get help or communicate. I'm stuck. And so I'm like, oh, no, what am I going to do? And I'm like, and my friend Jonelle is on the other side of the door. And from her perspective, all of a sudden she sees the door just going back and forth, rattling really, really hard. And I'm like, Jonelle, this is my friend. I am locked in the bathroom, but I am completely deaf right now. So nothing you say can help me. And she's like, oh no, what am I gonna do? And then she's like, okay, I'm gonna yell. That's not gonna work. And then she's like, okay, I'm gonna get down on the floor and sign through the cracks. That didn't help. I couldn't see. And then she's like, okay, I'm gonna get my phone and type a little message and send it underneath. Didn't fit. And then she's really starting to panic. And at one point, we both were holding both sides of the door and going back and forth. And the door is shaking, and it's still not opening. And then finally, she's like, okay. She teared a piece of paper. She wrote me a note. And it said, going to get help, Jonelle. And then she slid it underneath. And as she ran out, and I'm sitting on the floor like about to start bawling, and I'm reading this note, and as she ran out, and I'm on the floor, for some reason when she stepped, it popped open the door and it flung open. And I'm like, what is going on? And so then we both like are on the floor dying, laughing. But the reason we were really laughing is because she signed her name, Donnell. And I'm like, hello, I knew you were there. You were the only person in the room. But it was so reassuring to know that my friend was like, hey, you know my name, you trust me, and that this is me on the rescue mission. Like, I will do everything because I'm your friend, you know my name, I know your name, and I will do whatever it takes to get you out of the bathroom. And so there's so many times in our lives that we forget who does our saving. Because a lot of you guys, I'm sure, maybe you've experienced Jesus. Maybe you know Jesus. Maybe you're following Jesus. But there comes a point where we forget who does the saving. And so we start going to every self-help book. We start going to different substances, different relationships. We try so many things because we think this will be the thing that keeps the door open. And what ends up happening is that Jesus, through his mercy, he had already busted the jail cell open. That we as Christians, or maybe that's not where we are, but we will sit in the jail cell thinking we're waiting for it to be busted open, but it's been busted open. Because sometimes it is easier and it's more comfortable to just sit there. Because the moment that we're called out of the jail cell is the moment that we actually have to respond to a big eternal impact that is not comfortable and it is not easy, but it's worth it. But sometimes we want to stay. There is a story in the Bible that is a man that was paralyzed, laying on a mat and around a big pool with lots of other people. He had disabilities and challenges. And the legend was that an angel would come down to the pool of water and stir up the water, and that if you were the first ones in the water, you would receive healing. Well, this man had been laying there for decades, and he was not able to get himself to the water. And so he is stuck on the mat for most of his life. And Jesus comes in the picture. And when Jesus comes in the picture, we know that something major is going to happen. And he asked him a very strange question. He said, do you want to be healed? Why would he ask that? And I think it's because sometimes we really don't want to be healed. Because it takes hard work, it takes a lot of effort, and it's very uncomfortable. And then, miraculously, Jesus decides to heal him. And he says, pick up your mat and walk. Why did he say pick up the mat? I think it's because it was that constant reminder of what he stood up from. So for me, I am deaf, and I will still be deaf. And I have always struggled with thinking of Jesus as my healer because my hearing is getting progressively worse. It's not getting better. It's getting worse to the point I do not know if I will wake up one day and have no hearing left. So I'm missing 80 to 90% of my hearing. And I live life every day where I am reminded that Jesus did meet me in this, and he rescued me. I am saved by him. But I carry this mat around called deafness. But it is so tempting, and for a lot of us, it's so tempting that we're carrying this mat around because we've been healed or we've been saved. But there are times in our lives when we want to roll the mat back out. We want to roll it back out, and we want to lay back on the mat. And I will be honest with you guys. I am experiencing a season right now where I'm constantly wanting to roll the mat back out and feel sorry for myself. And I'm struggling with anxiety and depression right now with my hearing. Just a new season of a weird time. And I'm thinking, Lord, I have been going through so much. And I am in a valley right now. And my story is that I want you guys to remember that following Jesus a lot of times is a mountain and a valley experience. You will go up and down. That does not mean that he changes. We will still face trials in this world, but it means that I will constantly recall my mountaintop experiences with Jesus. So I will recall that I've been on the mountain. I know he is good. He has rescued me before from these exact things. I'm experiencing these same things. And I will once again, when I am in the valley, I will recall the mountaintop. And that is really my story. So I would just share some of my mountains and some of my valleys. Because the 360 view of Jesus on the mountain, that is worth it. I do not care what I go through in the valley if I can get to the 360 view of Jesus, because I know who he is. My story really begins when I was just 3 years old. That is such a young age to discover that life is really not fair. And that especially the deaf child, the hearing world is not made for you. So you're in this world where there is no place for you. And you have to discover what it is to be in a world that you really don't fit in. To my parents, I am the first deaf person they ever met. Can you imagine the first deaf person is your own child? And so they were kind of at lost. They were at a loss. I mean, where do you go from here? And at a very early age, doctors and the experts were telling my family that she would never become anything. She would never be what is normal. She would never be what you expect to be. She would exactly be these statistics and numbers about the deaf. She would struggle with unemployment. She would struggle with finding her place. She would struggle with graduation from high school, with her reading level, all of these things. And my parents decided at that moment that that was not my story, that my story was going to be the exact opposite. So they chose for me to be put into intensive speech therapy, to be in a mainstream school. And I went from speech from the time I was 3 years old to the time I was 13 years old. And how I learned how to speak was that I would place my hands in front of my therapist's mouth, and the vibrations of her voice and the way that she produced certain sounds, I would mimic that for myself. And I would learn in the mirror the placement of my mouth produce certain sounds. And for me, I'm very dependent upon hearing aids and lip reading. So I have a computer in my ear that helps adjust so I'm able to pick up some sounds. With my hearing loss, I have profound higher frequency loss. So I cannot hear things like the airplane, alarm clocks, water running. I cannot hear women's voices very well because of the higher frequency sound. And now I'm to the point, the past 3 years, my only hearing that I have left is completely bottoming out. So my lower tone sounds are going away from me. And that is that looming fear of what it will look like when I cannot hear parts of the music that I love, when I miss out on voices. When I noticed it this last time was because I used to sleep with a white noise machine. And one morning I woke up, there was no more white noise. It's completely silent. It's a terrifying feeling, yet it is my reality. And Jesus meets me in that, and he's not afraid of it. And my story was that I was really getting depressed as a young child. I started to see that my peers and my classmates would go to school and do fine on an exam, but I would have to go and be exhausted from lip reading all day, take home the textbooks, and reteach myself the entire day's lessons so that I could understand to take the test. And I would just get so frustrated and angry with my classmates. And I remember at sleepovers, it was so painful because the lights would turn off at the sleepover, and everyone would still be talking and having fun conversations, but I could not lip read in the dark. So I would just lay there pretending to be asleep. and just feeling the vibrations of voices around my sleeping bag. And at a young age, thinking these thoughts of, is this going to be my entire life? Will I always be alone in this world, and no one knows how to step into it? Will it be spinning around me, but I'm going to be left behind? And I remember those feelings. And all day long, I could pretend. And sometimes in the Christian culture, we start pretending. And then we actually can't let the body do what it's supposed to do and take care of each other. And so we, as a body, we have to be real with where we're at. And I would just pretend. I went to a Christian school. I could give you the right answers about knowing Jesus. I could put on the face of being happy and pleasant. And when you're a deaf person, you do something called social bluffing, to where you can respond and react based on how someone looks like they want you to respond. So I became the expert. I could nod my head and say yes. I could pretend to laugh and hear nothing. It's called social bluffing. And I think we do that regardless if we're deaf sometimes. That we just kind of go along with whatever happening. And so no one really knew me. I didn't give them the chance to. I was really hard. And I would pretend all day long. But the moment that I got into the car, the walls would come crashing down, and I would be bawling. And I would be crying with my mama all the way to when we got home. And she would always say something that stuck with me. And she said, Emma, tonight you are allowed to feel sorry for yourself. You're allowed to grieve. This is painful. You're so young. Yet tomorrow, you're going to pick yourself back up, and you're going to keep loving people. And so regardless of our valleys or the things that we're experiencing, we do have the choice to pick back up and keep loving people. Because when Jesus is in us, that we become this outpouring of who he is, his love, and that we can keep loving people regardless of what is happening inside of our own lives. Because it just transcends out of who we are. If we believe that we are eternal, because of what he's done, then this, what I'm experiencing, is a blink and a breath compared to eternity. It's like me being deaf is a centimeter on this stage. That is my lifetime here as a deaf person. But because I believe in Jesus, that means the rest of my eternity, all the way across the stage, means that the first voice that I will hear in its perfectness is Jesus' voice. Like, that's great. And so in this middle of depression as a young child, I knew that there had to be something more. I'm about 14 years old at this point, and I was desperate for the touch of Jesus. And I want to share a story in the Bible of a woman who was desperate for the touch of Jesus. It is Mark 5, and it's one of my favorite stories. And what happened is Jesus came across the lake from healing a man that was demon-possessed, cast it away. So at the moment he steps on the other side of the lake, a huge crowd of people surround him because Jesus is attractive. People wanted to be around him. He was the rock star. So when people heard he was coming, they wanted to see what he was about. So this entire crowd gathers around Jesus, and immediately, a man that is a religious leader seeks him out. His name's Jairus. And he said, my daughter is dying. Will you come with me? And Jesus is on mission at this point. He is beelining it with Jairus. And a crowd is all around him. And in the middle of this crowd, there is a woman who had an issue of blood, and it's been about 12 years of her life with constant bleeding. So she is miserable. She is desperate. And it says that in the Bible, it says that she suffered a great deal from many doctors. And over the years, she had spent everything that she had to pay them, but she had gotten no better. In fact, she had gotten worse. And with this issue of blood, it meant that she was culturally unclean. She could not be around people. She could not be around family. She would have been completely abandoned at this point. And the fact that she is taking a huge risk right now, she is deciding, I don't care what is happening culturally around me in society. There is nothing that will stop me from getting near to Jesus. Because the fact that she had this issue of blood is unclean, and she decided to be in a crowd of people, she does not care what people think. She's getting to Jesus. And she, at this point, has exhausted all of her resources. She has nothing left. And some of us, we're in that place today. We have tried every Netflix show. I binge watch. It's my secret thing. I love watching Netflix. But you tried every Netflix show. We tried every relationship. We tried every substance. We tried being really busy. Do you know that I'm so guilty of this too? But we can become busy for God and not actually do anything for God. We can do busy things, good things, because we think, oh, that would please him. And then we actually miss out on getting to do what God is asking us to do because we become so busy. So we try busyness, we try work, we try so many things that we see that is not fixing the root of the problem. It is like having a war wound and you are trying to patch it up with a Hello Kitty bandage. I love Hello Kitty. But like, Hello Kitty bandage, like, that's not gonna work. We're just kind of like slapping it on a really big problem and it's not gonna stay. And so she hears about Jesus. And she's just new. In the middle of this crowd, I picture a frail woman, a sickly woman, who is pressing through the crowd. Maybe she's like going underneath and trying to get to Jesus. And she's like, if I just touch his robe, the end of his cloak, I will be healed. So she touches the cloak, and immediately she is healed, and she feels it. And Jesus is on mission, of course. He's going to this man's daughter, and he stops. And he said, who touched me? Because he had felt the power leave him that someone had touched him. And his disciples, his posse, they're like, Jesus, what do you mean? Everyone is touching you. Everyone's bumping up against you. You are in a huge crowd of people. And Jesus says, no, someone has touched me. And there is such a difference between a bump and a touch. My whole life, up until I was 14, was bumping against Jesus because I was in a cultural situation where it was cool to like Jesus. I was in a Christian school, yet I did not know Jesus. And when I was 14 years old, I was desperate to touch Jesus for myself, not just bump against him. So I decided to follow Jesus, and it changed everything. And all of a sudden, people kept saying something about me, that my face was different. That's so weird, right? My face was visibly different because they said beforehand I was a hard, blank slate, really angry and unapproachable. And all of a sudden, I became so animated and alive and joyful. And people knew there had been a visible shift within my heart. And I had tried everything. I had tried being the coolest person that could tell fun jokes, or I had tried being the shy person, the person that was overlooked. I had tried everything, and I still sometimes will want to try, every Netflix show, every relationship. But it always comes back to, am I actually sitting with Jesus? And am I actually reaching out for what he has? Because it's way better. It's always way better. And we can spend our whole life just being exhausted. And what's so beautiful about this story is that when he finally got to the woman, she fell down on her knees in front of him and told what had happened. Another version says she told her whole story, her whole entire story. So Jesus, although there's a looming thing of, okay, he needs to be in a hurry, he's not in a hurry. He welcomed the interruption of this woman. We need to welcome people to be interruptions in our lives because loving people is hard. But this interruption is beautiful. It changes her whole life. And she tells her whole story. Jesus is not ashamed. He's not embarrassed. He's not judging. All of a sudden, her whole story is out before him in this moment. And it says, daughter, Your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Your suffering is over. He did not say, the woman with the blood, go. He did not say all of these names about her. It was that she was daughter. And so what was different about me when I met Jesus was that all of a sudden, I became not the deaf girl that was weird, that spoke funny, or had big hearing aids. It was that I was just Emma. I was just his daughter. I was his little girl. That is the shift, is I am his little girl. And when you realize that you are a part of God's family, you are his son or his daughter, that means that you can start dreaming crazy big things. And so at 14 years old, I started dreaming these dreams that I could literally become all things. I knew I could. And that people my whole life have been telling me that I could not do certain things. And I was thinking, I'm going to do the very thing that you've told me I could never do. Because I believe that his perfect strength is made perfect in this weakness. So everybody else is saying she is deaf, she is not normal, she will never be who she is. God is saying that this will be made perfect. So I started playing music. I started falling in love with deaf people, learning the language. And when I was 18 years old, I started Aid the Silent. And it was a crazy, crazy God story, but I was 18 years old. That was the founder of an international organization that was helping deaf children and teenagers all over the world. And so we help provide resources such as hearing aids, classroom equipment. We provide sign language classes, speech therapy, an array of things because I know that I'm supposed to go back to the places that I was not free in, that now I've discovered freedom, and I'm going back to those places to tell people that there is more. There is freedom coming for you. And so wherever we are in our stories, we can go back to the places that we have been redeemed and had freedom in and tell people, hey, you're not stuck here. You will experience freedom, and I'm going to help you alongside that. And that is what I'm doing through Aid the Silent. And the biggest way is through a music festival, which might be strange, but it really creates this beautiful environment to where people who do not know Jesus will come in and experience the love of Jesus. And it's through music, and it's that deaf people, for the first time in their entire lives, it is all about them. So we invite all of our hearing friends because it's a blast and we don't want to miss it. But it's called the Good Vibrations Music and Arts Festival. So I play music through vibrations, and that's kind of where the name came from, is that deaf people are not limited to music inside their ears. We feel the music and we see the music. So we have light shows, there's vibrations that you can wear in backpacks, and then you can show the video. This is for this year, September 29th, at the Stunken Gardens. So if you want to play the video. Thank you.
An outdoor festival for all ages, benefiting nonprofit Aid the Silent. Enjoy artisans' booths, games, and food trucks on September 29th at the Sunken Garden Theater. Deaf Accessible, official tricentennial event. Tickets available at goodvibrationsmusicfest.com and HEB.
Oh, so fun. It was a blast. But what I love about it is that for the first time, a people group that's never included, never invited, they are front and center, and they can be anywhere in the festival grounds. Normally, with deaf people, we're all in the corner, and we're all just with an interpreter. But for this, the interpreter is on the jumbo screen, so they can go anywhere inside the festival to feel the music, wear the technology, and just be a festival goer for the first time. And what's so amazing about the life that I'm living now is I never would have thought it possible as a young child because I was so stuck and being stuck on the mat. And now that I'm carrying the mat around, and I'm seeing that there's more for me, there's a beautiful life for me. This is the product of the redemption of Jesus in my life and going back to the places that were hard and uncomfortable. And honestly, I could have ignored that Jesus called me to be in deaf ministry. It's very difficult. They're the third largest unreached with the gospel, and there's 300 people working full-time for to spread the gospel in this community. So it's not easy, but it's so worth it. I have my best friends ever. I've experienced exactly what Jesus called me to do, and I'm getting to throw an event that everyone is invited to when I felt so uninvited. And so I want to challenge you today that there's two things. Honestly look, are you bumping against Jesus, or are you reaching out and touching him for yourself? Honestly take a deep look at that. And my other challenge is, where are you carrying the mat around in a way that is saying, here is what Jesus has done, I'm not going back? Or are we going through seasons where we're rolling the mat back out and we need to be reminded? Because when I teach this, I'm reminded that I'm not stuck on this mat. So I just ask that you would take a deep look and see this in your own life. And I will be in the back of the room. I'd love to talk to you. I'm going to be at that table, and I'm selling tickets to where if you buy one ticket, you will get the other one free. But I'd also love to have a conversation with you. And so let me pray for us, and then we can have a beautiful morning on Sunday. Hey, Jesus, thank you that you are the God to where we don't have to be stuck on the mat. And Lord, thank you that there's grace and new mercies every day when we do feel stuck, and that there is no shame with you. Thank you that there is no condemnation with Christ, and that means that whatever we are facing today, whatever is hard and difficult and seems like we can't get past it, we know your heart. We know that you are true. We know what you promised to us, and you will fulfill your promises to us. Lord, I just thank you that you're a God that we can reach out and just know intimately like a friend. Lord, would we do that today? Just know you like a friend. And would you be with us in this week, that we could just sit and talk with you throughout our days and just really sit in your presence and really sit with you. Lord, I just love you. I know you're doing something big. And in your precious name, we're going to go in this day. And in your name, amen. Thank you guys so much.
All right. Good job, Emma. That was good, right? That's way better than a sleepy mic, I promise you that. Emma, thank you so much for coming out.